Hello class, today is part 4 of chapter 6, the muscular system. This will conclude our notes. Today we're going to be talking about types of muscles, naming skeleton muscles, and also the developmental aspects of the muscular system. Types of muscles. You have a prime mover muscle, which is the muscle with the major responsibility of a particular motion. For example, it's the muscle that is actually causing the muscle movement. Your antagonist is the muscle that acts in opposition to the prime mover. So, for example, for elbow flexion, your biceps is your prime mover, your triceps are your antagonist. So biceps is what moves the muscle, or the muscle moves the bone, and then the antagonist is what moves it back. Then you have your synergist, which are muscles that cooperate with another muscle to produce movement. These are the ones that stabilize joints, like your finger flexors. You can make a fist without bending the wrist. So you've got your finger flexors are allowing you to make a fist, but it's also stabilizing your wrist so that it doesn't curve as your fingers curve. Your fixators stabilize the origin of a prime mover. So these are muscles that actually anchor, like the scapula to the thorax. So your scapula, it's not really attached to the other, like the core of your body, except for through those muscles, through those fixators. Naming skeleton muscles. Okay, so there are 7 different ways that we name skeletal muscles. The first one is the direction of the muscle fiber. So if it's like rectus, that means it's straight. It's or the obliques are at an angle. So the direction of the muscle fiber is one of them. The second one is the relative size of the muscle. So for example, the latissimus dorsi. Latissimus means widest. It's the widest muscle. The third way is the location of the muscle. So you have your biceps brachii and your biceps femoris. So femoris is the bicep of the leg. The brachii is the bicep of the arm. Your fourth way to name it is the number of origins. So, for example, your tricep, which means 3 heads, it actually has 3 origins. Triceps. Seps means heads. Tri means 3. Biceps is 2. So how many ever origins it has, that is the number. So location of origin and the insertion point. So once again, that would be like your biceps brachii. Number 6 is the shape of the muscle, like your deltoid. Your deltoid is in a triangle shape, and delta means triangle. 7 is the action of the muscle. So depending on if it's flexing or extending or whatever it's doing, so your finger flexors, that's actually the action of the muscle. This next section is the last section, and it is the developmental aspects of the muscular system. Basically, by the time an embryo reaches the 16th week, that's when your muscle is developing. Now, with congenital diseases, you have things such as muscular dystrophy, where the muscle fibers are going to degenerate and atrophy. The example that we give is the Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Most people just call it muscular dystrophy, but Duchenne is the person that it's named after. That's their last name. This is the most common and serious type of muscle disease. Basically, males between 2 and 6 years old is when it's diagnosed. By the time they're 12, they're usually in a wheelchair, and before they get into full adulthood, typically they pass away. Muscle control. At birth, you have reflexes. Your nervous system has to be mature enough for you to have those reflexes. But basically, if it's a full gestational pregnancy, which is 40 weeks, then at birth they will have reflexes. The developmental part of muscle control is it develops cephalic to caudal and then proximal to distal. So that means it starts at the head and then it moves towards the back or to your bottom. And then proximal to distal, the closer the muscle is to your core, the quicker those develop. Then finally the distal develops last. So let me give you a real life example of that. When you have an infant, you know that you have to support their head because they cannot support that head by themselves. As long as you are giving them a lot of tummy time and stuff like that, you know, having them a safe pallet on the floor to be able to practice lifting that head, which is the cephalic, that's going to be the first one that they get control over. Then it's going to extend down into the arms and the legs, but it starts with the head. Now the proximal to distal part is this. You know, infants can move their arms and move their legs, but they don't really have good control over their fingers. A baby might be able to grip something, but, you know, until they're, you know, older, until they're over, you know, 18 months, they're not really going to be able to grasp a spoon and put it to their mouth. Not on purpose anyway, like they're continually feeding themselves. So they're developing, they can already use their shoulders and stuff like that and their elbows to move their arms, but their fingers, which are the distal part of that limb, develops much later. Your skeletal muscles are very rich in blood supply, and this makes them more resistant to infection because they're being flushed continuously with not just red blood cells for the oxygen, but also the white blood cells, your eosinophils and your basophils. All of those are going to help fight infection because they're getting a very, very, very high amount of constant blood supply. So it helps them to become more resistant to infection. With aging, your muscle tissue is going to decrease. It'll cause a decrease in body weight. It also causes decreased strength. The example that I like to give for this is, you know, typically dads kind of like to keep up with their sons as far as, you know, if you're playing basketball together or, you know, something like that. And eventually you hit a point in life where, say that you're 30 years old and your dad is like 55 or 60 years old. He's not going to be able to keep up quite as much with you as he used to. He's not going to be able to lift as heavy objects as you can because his muscle is actually decreasing. So it's going to cause that decreased strength. It really doesn't matter what you do to try to avoid it. You're going to lose muscle mass even if you're working out every day. You may not lose as much as long as you lift weights in a healthy way as you get older, but there will come a point in time where you see, you know, if you're able to lift, you know, 50 pounds easily, you'll start seeing that it's going to start decreasing. That 50 pounds is going to be pretty hard and you can lift 45 pounds and then it'll go to 40 pounds. And, you know, then eventually you won't be able to lift nearly as much. You'll still be able to lift stuff, but not as much. So this is the last slide of our notes. Make sure you have everything written down on it and be prepared for your test, which will be coming up pretty soon. So I will talk to y'all later, and I hope you have a great day.